Hey guys, it's Payne. I'm really excited to introduce a brand new show to Bet the Board that combines sports and alternative investing, the very first of its kind. Sports betting and collectibles converging is inevitable. Let me tell you why. Sports cards and memorabilia are another way to get money into the market and do it without limit restrictions or the substantial hold you're accustomed to with sports betting. Whether you collected cards as a kid and are looking to get back into the hobby, this podcast is for you. If you've been collecting cards for years, this podcast will make you think and operate more efficiently. Are you in real estate? The parallels to investing in sports cards and memorabilia are uncanny. You're on Wall Street. Well, listen close. The best sports cards have outperformed the S&P 500 by 6x since 2013. And during the 2008 market crash, sports cards held up better than the S&P 500. Bet the Board, in conjunction with PWCC, presents CardBoard Chat, an entertaining, sophisticated, and informative podcast that combines sports, analytics, betting, cards, and memorabilia. Without further ado, this is CardBoard Chat with Jesse Craig, a leading figure in the collectible space, and me, Payne. Episode 15 of CardBoard Chat. We're back. Jesse, I know the PWCC office duties have increased 10x recently. Are you surviving?
I am surviving. I am a little under the weather, a little congested. So I apologize in advance for any sniffling or any of that crap on the pod today.
It happens. You're playing through it. You're not injured. You're just hurt.
I'm a gamer. I'm a gamer.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Aside from, and I'll put this into the universe now, Monday, May 1st, where I'll have to miss to be there for my friend and partner Todd Furman at a time where his life is ending. There shouldn't be many or interruptions moving forward. The people need their CardBoard Chat fix. So we're glad you are healthy enough. We will push forward. I know when we were exploring some topics for this week, we thought it'd be smart to dive into the sports card calendar and kind of focus on the now. People have heard us in passing talk about good buying and selling windows, but it's rarely been more than surface level or in passing. And with new listeners each show and loyal listeners wanting a little bit deeper of a dive, we thought this would be the perfect time to do that with the three major sports where they're currently positioned. It's the offseason in the NFL. Basketball teams are making their playoff push post All-Star break, and spring training officially underway.
Yep. Yeah, the timing right now in our space is very interesting. And so you're right. We've talked in generality about when to buy, when to sell, but figured we could talk about right now. So when I look at, we'll start with baseball. Look, spring training starting. You've got about a month away from opening pitch or so, just maybe a little bit more. And now is a great time for any modern baseball to sell. Sell that. Sell it now. Do not take the risk if you can afford to. If you are up on a card, get rid of it, sell it, don't take the risk. With all the injuries going on in sports these days, I always worry, especially with how baseball treats PEDs. I mean, you look at a guy like Tatis and what's happened to his cards, because whether he really did something nefarious and egregious or not, or if it was an actual mistake, it's hard to tell. But all of a sudden he's coupled into this, PED usage, and it drastically affected his cards when he was the hottest guy on the planet for a while. So, we talk about brand, not only someone's performance on the field, but their brand and how that equates to value in trading cards. And that's a great example from a baseball perspective. So if you've got those modern guys that were doing really well at the end of last season, from a value perspective, you saw their stuff uptick. I'm thinking about like the Julio Rodriguez's and those guys. I would take a serious look at potentially getting out of those now. And maybe buying, if you are going to buy and you want to take a risk, because look, there needs to be depending on everyone's portfolio, a different level of risk. So if you want a little risk, maybe you look at somebody whose stuff wasn't doing as well last year for X, Y, and Z reason. I look at a guy like maybe a Juan Soto. His stuff kind of went down at the end of the year. on a really good team. Maybe there's some upside this year for him. So there's still opportunities to buy. It's not a total seller's market, but if you want to play it safe, I'd let some of those modern guys go.
And not that it's the end-all be-all in baseball, but Soto's already got the ring, which is a nice little added bonus. Yep. He's also 23, 24 years old. You start to look at his numbers already, right? Over 125 home runs, over 600 hits. He's kind of on that course if he can maintain his health. And he's going to get a monster deal here pretty soon, double-digit years for sure on his contract, that he's going to start achieving some of these milestones, I think. That was actually a great place to start with baseball, with spring training here. And we've talked over the last couple weeks about some undervalued cards and players, and they were typically baseball. And we've, mentioned some good buying opportunities with some of those assets. But now that we're kind of transitioning to March, April, as you kind of look at the calendar, and I know you guys have the best data in the world on when the best time is to buy, sell, hold. You see all of that. This typically tends to be that time, right? March, April for baseball, at that little 100%. Peak as the season's coming here. Again, this is very general, right? Buying and selling opportunities can present themselves at any time in any sport. And, I make good practice going, if I'm going to a local show or something on a Saturday, or I'm at a larger event, let's check and see what PWCC sales looked like Thursday evening, because sometimes, dealers haven't refreshed their stickers in that 36-hour window. But generally speaking, April tends to be that peak selling season for baseball cards within the 12-month calendar, as Jesse alluded to. As we transition here, unless you have any more thoughts on the diamond.
Just one more quick thing.
Yeah, go for it.
Did you randomly have those stats on the top of your head for Soto? Because I did not plan on bringing him up and just kind of float in conversation. So that's impressive. Look at this data guy. It's at the top of his head. Doesn't even need to write it down.
So long story short is I have a couple nice Soto pieces. I saw the dip. Didn't really panic. And it's just a guy that I've been focused on. As you know, I don't really dive into modern all that much. I've taken three plunges, really, I guess if you call super new modern. The three plunges were Patrick Mahomes in football. I had a soft spot for Gleyber Torres in baseball, bought early enough to where I could dump and still make about 20% on the overall Gleyber portfolio, although he's dipped substantially. And then a couple nice Juan Soto pieces. Aside from that, it's very much 90s, it's vintage, some game use stuff in the early to mid 2000s, things of that nature of players that have already established themselves. But with Juan Soto, that was a guy that you could just tell in the batter's box was ahead of his time, right? I mean, he was 19 years old, taking pitches. He's in the World Series, giving Verlander the business, parking shots. And then, as it turns out, which I just found out recently, he used to play for the Washington Nationals, obviously, and spring training was down here in West Palm Beach. My barber actually cuts his hair. So we share a barber. Okay. Yes. And so that's kind of the correlation to Juan Soto.
That's your one claim to fame.
Yes.
Very cool.
Yeah, my one claim to fame, asshole.
Wait, hold on. There's actually one more thing I want to... You made a really good comment about how there's different ways to make money. I do believe, and this is something somebody told me in real estate a long time ago that I believe wholeheartedly, is that you make your money on the buy and not the sell. So when you mention that there's ways to make money in other aspects, I mean, you can go to a card show. You mentioned that too, right? You can go to a card show and buy something for 60 cents on the dollar if you get a good deal on it and sell it the next day and make money. So we're not saying that, sell everything, but if there's an opportunity to make money on the buy side, that's a great spot to do it. The sell side is a bonus, right? Trying to time that correctly, sure.
Tough.
But getting a good buy is where it all starts. And so that's where that saying comes into play. So I just want to set the stage for that.
No, and I think it's perfect. And we've talked about this card specifically, but, the Candy Honus Wagner that we talked about, I don't know, a couple months ago. I actually just randomly purchased in St. Louis, I believe 2 summers ago, and it has that identical image to the big time Honus Wagner card, and that was up for auction, and I thought it would set a new record. And so just kind of getting out ahead of that, where you're playing that comp game, right? It is a little bit of a strategic gamble where you're saying, hey, card Y is being priced at the last comp. If I'm coming in and paying cash, can probably get a decent little deal. And, a week from now or 2 weeks from now, the market's probably going to reset because I believe this parallel card over here, a mirror card, a sibling card, is going to set a new record and cause that card I'm purchasing to increase a little bit. So yes, I think your point is pretty good there in terms of if you can buy at the right price, it's very difficult to get completely hurt.
Trading cards and memorabilia have seen incredible growth as an alternative investment. The company leading the growth? PWCC Marketplace. PWCC Marketplace runs the largest weekly auction of authenticated sports cards, Pokemon cards, comic books, video games, and memorabilia in the world. PWCC Marketplace also has more than 65,000 items listed in their fixed price marketplace that you can make an offer on right now. Head over to pwccmarketplace.com and see why they're the best option for buying and selling trading cards, memorabilia, and all of your collectibles.
As we transition to basketball, that's your sport. We're in the midst of the playoff push. It's possible dumping a young player or two as their team makes a run could allow a collector to take advantage of a short-term surge in the market as demand increases a little bit. But in the long run, what's proven to be some of the better buying and selling windows for hoops?
Don't buy Damian Lillard right now. Well, funny.
Can you believe
funny
they
quick
drug
story.
tested immediately after the game?
Oh my God, this stuff's getting out of control.
Nuts.
Especially a little point guard. Like what are drugs going to do for him? I don't really get it. But I was actually supposed to be at that game and gave my tickets away. I know
because of the disease you currently have, huh?
No, actually, I was supposed to take one of my sons, Marley, to the game. And I had a random tattoo appointment get scheduled that is very hard to get in on. And so I told Marley, I said, hey, what if we went on Wednesday to the Pelicans-Blazers game instead? And I got you out of school a little bit early, and we went downtown and had, yada, yada, right? Selling him on switching games. And he was super happy to switch games and go on Wednesday and get out of school a little bit early. And unfortunately, we missed the 71-point performance.
Tough.
Yeah, I know.
Tough.
That's what I get, right?
Just for a little ink the first time.
Just for a little second time. So I'm working on the sleeve, and it's going to take some time, but that was session 2.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah.
So we'll see a different version of you in a couple months.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
But, okay, so basketball.
Focus.
It is absolutely time to sell anyone that you do not think is going to make the playoffs that is a modern player. For the love of God, sell it right now. I have seen this way too many times. People wait to sell till mid-April when the season's basically wrapped up. Sell that stuff. If anyone is going to make the playoffs and you think they're going to get bounced in the first round, sell them now. This is because people lose attention in the NBA. Once the playoffs start, unless you have someone that randomly makes a huge run and starts playing really well, you could see some upside there. It happened with Tatum. Was it last year or 2 years ago? He had an incredible playoff run, and his cards went up. But you typically don't see it. And, we talk about when people win championships too, what that does to their cards. It's really situational because if that person is expected to win, that price is really baked in. It's already accounted for in there. So I would use LeBron this year as an example. If the Lakers, I think someone told me they have a 2% chance to win the NBA championship, which feels high, but I'll take it as a Laker fan. If the Lakers win the championship, LeBron's stuff, I promise you, will go up because he's not expected to win, right? If you get someone like a Giannis.
I was just about to ask you about him. What's your vibe there?
Giannis might actually go up a little bit. I think it cements him more because he has one. As a young guy, he's got 2 now. That could actually really cement Giannis, and that could help. Durant, I don't think it'll help his stuff much at all. He's now, we one of the cards I picked for Magic number this week is a Durant card, just because he's relevant.
Yep.
But I don't think it would really help his cards. He's got this, and this goes to Brand, right? He's notorious for bouncing around and trying to jump on teams that win. And I just don't think it's going to help his values at all, even if the Suns win a championship. And in turn, I don't think it's going to help Booker, and I don't think it's really going to help CP3. So
really?
I really don't. because they're going to look at, I think, Durant and go, well, that's the reason they won it. And people are like, well, Durant doesn't have a great brand.
It's not. It's not.
He doesn't have a great brand, right? Now
doesn't seem overly likable.
I've actually watched quite a few interviews with him and know some people that know him, and he actually, from what I understand, is a pretty good dude. I've never talked to him, but he's got a bad rep publicly, which hurts his brand. So this is where the majority of the guys that are in the playoffs, Luka, I don't know if it's going to move the needle a ton if Luka wins one. People are expecting Luka to eventually win a championship. I really don't think it does. And you look in the West, like Jokic's cards aren't worth a whole lot. So if they win one, yeah, that'll help maybe a little bit. But he's a big man, so it doesn't move the needle a ton on Jokic either, in my opinion. So it's kind of interesting when you look at all the potential championship contenders, what it will do to their cards. And there's not a lot of guys I look at and go, man, their cards are going to go nuts if they win a ship.
Man, that's interesting. Now, Luka, to your point, is priced so high, and maybe that's your vibe there. But I do think a championship would. Yeah, I do think a championship helps him, just because he's the key cog. I know you've acquired Kyrie, but this isn't some loaded roster.
No, it's not.
I think with Jokic, right, he's the glue to that team. There's really not much else there. Some of the guys, sure, Murray's playing better than expectation coming off the knee injury. Porter's back is still kind of holding on strong for the time being, but he's the key cog there, and he's playing at an MVP level. I think it helps him a little bit. The one interesting thing that I'll disagree with a ton is I think for Chris Paul, because he's been so close, because that's the one thing he's missing, it cements him as a top 5 point guard of all time if he wins a ring, no matter who's on that team.
Yeah, we definitely disagree on that because, once again, this is a guy whose brand isn't that great.
No,
I can't stand Chris Paul, and there's a lot of people that can't stand him. No, I'm serious. I've never, on the court, he seems like a complete jackass.
I don't, he's not going to have a monster surge in pricing. I just think in terms of his profile. You talk like
percentages, right? Even percentage-wise, I understand what you're saying. Like, that's the last thing for Chris Paul, right? Getting a championship, solidifying his legacy in that regard. But I'm thinking about people that collect Chris Paul. They'd be happy about it. And if we do see a spike in Chris Paul pricing, I think it's short term.
Okay.
I don't think it's sustainable.
That makes sense. Interesting.
Yeah.
I wonder if down the road people will finally respect him because, just absolute stud on the basketball court, went both ways.
He's fantastic. He drove me nuts. He was always playing against my Lakers, so he always drove me nuts. But
he's feisty.
But yeah, he is feisty for sure.
Now the sport that I obviously love the most, and the NFL does its best to own all 12 months of the year, right? We've expanded the regular season. We got coaching moves post Super Bowl. The combine starts in 24 hours. Free agency window opens March 15th. Then you have the draft in late April. Give us a peek into what PWCC's data suggests that are, the primo peaks for selling and maybe some of the valleys for buying NFL cards.
I would say outside of a week outside the combine. So don't buy. That's where the NFL gets some attention right now is, hype and buzz around the combine, but that usually lasts about a week. Buy all you can in the next 2 months. Before the draft, a week after the combine, that is an amazing window to buy football. And that's what I would be doing if I were people. And depending on who you're buying and what you're buying, limiting risk. There's guys that you can buy right now and you can sell in August and make 20 to 30% without them stepping on the field with just hype.
And Jared Goff's your guy.
Jared Goff is my guy. Go buy some Goff.
So, past the big sports, right? I think kind of putting a bow tie on this, you're looking for, tiny windows around specific events, maybe hot starts for a player if you're thinking about moving an asset. As we kind of expand past, these major sports, I think a good example is maybe Tiger Woods, right? Certainly his assets have cooled since the ultimate peak. But we did see the 2001 SP Authentic Tiger Woods rookie PSA 1010 sell again at PWCC about a month ago with a 5 in front of it for the first time in 8 months. And it just so happens to be, right, 2 weeks before his first scheduled tournament of the 2023 golf schedule. He didn't look the same towards the end of last season. Market dipped a little bit, prices down. Now all of a sudden, right, Tiger's about to be back on the course, plays in the Genesis, set to compete in the Players' Championship in March. Then you have the Masters in April. Market demand increases during this small window. That's kind of your chance. Now, zoom out 20 years. I think it's probably smart to hold Tiger Woods, right? Even right now. But sometimes, human beings are listening to this, right? Life happens. You want to take the lady friend on a trip. It's your 20th year anniversary. Your twin boys got scholarships to college and you want to take them on a vacation before they head off to school. Tax season approaching and you have a nut to pay and you kind of want to finance these things with cards. I think it's important to find those short-term windows where market surges can happen.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's relevancy. That's really what this is. Tiger Woods is relevant again because he's playing.
That's the smart, concise way. Yes.
Yeah. What is? I'm going to go on a golf tangent here, but
go for it.
What I absolutely love about the sport of golf, find me another sport that can have someone in their late 40s who's a GOAT still compete. You can't. There's not a real sport. I mean, like the closest thing you're going to get is a Tom Brady playing quarterback, that is an absolute unicorn. But I mean, Phil Mickelson won the championship or the PGA championship last year as a 50-year-old, 51-year-old. There aren't sports like that where you can do that. It's absolutely crazy. And that's why I love golf so much is you got a guy like Tiger who, as long as he steps foot on the course, is relevant. And we all believe he has a shot to win. So, I just love that about the game of golf in general. And you're right. 20 years from now, he's still going to be the GOAT. I'm telling you, it is so hard to win in the game of golf. You got guys that win one PGA Tour event, and they've made it. I mean, that is like the pinnacle. The guy won 82. He won 82. He was number one in the world for, I might be making up, it's like 500 weeks or something. It was like almost 10 years in a row that he was the number one golfer in the world. And you got, I think we've already seen 2 or 3 number ones this year between Scheffler and Rory and Rahm. So you want to talk about legacy and records that are going to be very difficult to break. There are so many of those that Tiger Woods has to cement his legacy as a GOAT that you buy and hold long-term for Tiger. I don't know how you lose.
Yeah, I think long-term it's the smart play because whether you have him as 1A or 1B, like he's going to be in the GOAT conversation. I will push back and say that as a bettor who dabbles in golf and has guys do some work for him in that realm, Tiger's been the biggest fade every time he steps on the golf course right now. Because we actually
bet on him winning.
We actually don't think he can compete at this level. And we kind of saw that at the Genesis where he finishes +2. It's a nice story. He's out there. He's relevant from that perspective. I just don't think, boy, I hate to say this,
heart versus
head.
Heart versus head.
There you
That's
go.
it.
There you go.
In our hearts, we believe he can win.
Yes.
In our minds, we know he can't. Right? Like, now, I'm not going to put it past him for throwing a random victory in here over the next 5 years when he plays. He might pick up one. He catches a hot streak, and all of a sudden he's a little bit healthier, and all of a sudden he's playing. He's got a shot to win. He's still Tiger Woods. I mean, you talk about PGA Tour players next to him on the range, and they say they've never heard the sound that comes off of his golf ball. They say it's different. They just say it's different than everybody else's, which is just weird to hear from fellow pros. So that gives you some sense to how good this guy really is.
For the sake of our listeners who don't like golf, who don't want to listen to Tiger Wood rants anymore, it's time to flip this conversation a little bit.
Let's go, let's go, let's go. It's time, folks. That's right. We're going to discuss undervalued and overvalued cards, or maybe even some memorabilia assets, potentially some players. Is it time to buy, sell, or hold on to these assets or players? We'll give you some opinions and back it up.
Now, I don't want to give you too much credit for being a forward thinker, but our topic at the onset, probably the longest discussion we've had at the top of a show, and your choice for undervalued asset this week kind of go hand in hand and provide another example of what we just discussed, and that example is arguably the most important football card ever.
Yeah, my undervalued for the week is the 2000 Brady championship ticket. We've talked about this card quite a bit on the pod, I believe, from time to time in different realms. It is the staple chase card for football. It is the GOAT's rookie, numbered out of 100, and on-card auto. So it is what you want as a collector of any high-end asset. And I mean, it's basically the equivalent to Jordan's PMG Red from, kind of from a quantity perspective and noteworthy perspective. Yet this one's autographed, right? It's an actual rookie. It's on card. So you try to think in your head, Payne, about if there was a card from the 80s, if there was a Jordan rookie from 86, let's say, that was on card autoed and serial number to 100.
Yeah.
In authentic condition only. It's a 7-figure card all day and not even question.
Without question,
right? So I'll use the 8.5 grade for this champ ticket as an example because that card has changed hands quite a bit lately. It peaked at 2.3 million about 1 year ago. It has sharply declined because of too much supply, in my opinion, and also, economic factors, so on and so forth. That card has declined. It's settled down about 550, 600K now. But that is what I feel like near the floor. I just don't understand, with supply drying up a little bit because of how much these have changed hands, that, the next 3 to 5 years, Brady hung it up. He's going to make the haul, obviously. This is the chase card for Tom Brady. I believe in our space. I'm obviously bullish. All the stuff that's going to go on from a notoriety perspective. Anybody that comes into the space with any money that is a football fan is going to want this card. So I don't know how this card can go down much more than it is now. And with all those things in place, that's why I think it's, my undervalued card of the week.
Yeah, I mean, you have the market dipping a little bit, but some of the factors that we just talked about are in play here. It's out of season. We've even mentioned the lull between retirement and induction to the Hall of Fame. That's going on right now. Tom's kind of been, aside from the picture of he took, the selfie in his underwear, he's kind of been out of sight, out of mind for a little bit.
That was ridiculous.
And he pushed back his start date with Fox until 2024, so he won't even be in front of us on a TV calling games in the near term. So I think, to your point here, this has the potential to be very much the bottom on that card.
Yeah.
I'm going to transition a little bit, and when I picked this card out, I didn't really know we'd be talking about another rare Babe Ruth later on in the show, but this is pretty interesting to me. Two kind of off the radar Babe Ruth cards. The one I'm talking about here that I believe is undervalued, 1951 Topps Connie Max All-Star Babe Ruth. And this, for me, a little bit of a hidden gem, right? You kind of have to be a Ruth super collector, or only focus on vintage or the 50s, or just kind of a guy who's a Topps enthusiast. Like, it's certainly not a mainstream card here, or one that a lot of people think about, but it has a lot of the attributes that we talk about for positive financial investing within this card space, because it's the first Topps Babe Ruth card. You look at the 11 card set, it's kind of littered, right, with Hall of Famers. There's also some innovation here. It's also scarce, right, both in production and condition. The card pops, right? You have this action photo printed on a bright red background. There's a ton of detail on the card, from player's full name to his nickname, a facsimile signature. The back of the card has a biography of the player, basically, of each card in the set. The card is larger than regular because Topps designed them for kids to stand up. There's literally folding instructions on the back. And because you could fold the card and stand it up, high-grade examples are just ghosts. PSA is graded less than 1,000 total copies of all 11 players combined, less than 85 Ruths have been graded, with the highest being 2 PSA 7s. These very much kind of live in the authentic to PSA 5 graded range. I just think, anytime you can find a first-year vintage product with a player of Ruth stature that has the Big Tops brand, that's scarce and condition sensitive, and the price tag is under 5 figures, it just feels wildly undervalued to me.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's a very interesting pick. I don't see many of these sell. You talked about the supply issues. So this card isn't in people's faces, and I think that's part of the reason it has maybe suffered from a pricing perspective, is just the awareness gap. But very, very cool card. It's similar to the 1964 Top stand-up, where this card was actually designed to be like a display piece, right? Which obviously affects the condition that goes down the road, like you mentioned. But really cool. Only an 11-player set. You've got Gehrig and Wagner and Walter Johnson in there, to name a few. But it is a very vibrant card with the red background, oversized like you mentioned. And to think that a card was designed for display to survive almost 75 years in any condition above a 5 is pretty baffling. So yes, PSA 7 is the highest graded example. And what's crazy is the last sale for a PSA 7 was in 2019 for $21,600. Now, what would that card grade, or what would that card sell for today? Who knows? But for an early 50s card that is a Topps brand to sell for under 25 grand in the highest graded example for Babe Ruth, I would imagine that's going to get close to 6 figures if it's sold today.
Yeah.
But this is just a card that does not get the attention or the love that it should, just because I think of the awareness issue.
A PSA 5.5 just did a shade under 6K recently.
That's stupid.
Yeah, it's nuts.
Did you buy it?
No, it wasn't me, unfortunately. I didn't see it. I completely. Yeah, it's actually someone we know. And he texted me this weekend and kind of, I knew about the card and he started talking about it. I was like, this is perfect for this segment. Now, let me ask you this, and it's a little different than what we've discussed, and we'll get to everyone's favorite segment here in a minute. But let me ask you this. Podcasts like this, the continuing of content creation, just your typical evolution of a market. You don't want to spill the beans, but obviously you guys are getting into content. Mm-hmm. As we look 20 years from now, is this going to be well known, right? As people smart enough to have conversations like this and continue to create content, like, to me, cards like this are no longer going to be in the shadows.
Sure. Yeah.
Do you agree with that sentiment, or am I just, this is going to be a card that's just not on the top of people's minds 20 years from now?
I think there's going to be more of a demand for it because, our pie's gotten bigger, the market's gotten bigger. I think, my honest opinion is that we might be in a realm of content overload here in the next few years, where...
Certainly seeing in the gambling space.
Right. Well, yeah. Okay, there's my point then. So you look at a card like this, where I think the education should be out there that it's undervalued and that people should know about it. How that actually lands in the consumer's lap from an education perspective is the question. We've had talks off camera about education and data and how we're trying to do our best to, bridge that gap to bring more awareness to cards like this and just simplify the entire experience for the general user and consumer. But it's not an easy task. So you're going to have good content and then really shitty content, and the general public isn't going to know the difference, right? Like, it's going to take education to know the difference. And I just think that a card like this, while it should be one that everyone's aware of, I think it's going to be more difficult. I think it's generally going to go up in value more because people will stumble upon it as the pie grows and more people get in the space, but not necessarily because it's so
pick a number, any number, whatever it may be. We got a number inside, but we want a magic number. All right, this is where we're gonna pick a few big cards that enter in an auction over the next couple of days, and we're gonna try and guess how much they sell for in advance. Throw out a number. We got one too.
This is the part of the show everyone seems to love, and you, sir, are the comeback kid. You are clawing your way back. Last time we convened, you picked up a nice 2-1 win. You actually beat me 3-0, I believe, 3 episodes ago. So you're climbing your way back. Now, I will say this. Football season's done for me. Can allocate a little bit more time here.
Oh, here we go.
So you're going to have to step up your game.
Hey, I'm kind of like the Lakers yesterday, the comeback kid.
Oh, God. Okay. The first card we're going to talk about here is a really interesting one. 2009 National Treasures Colossal. Tim Duncan, NBA Logo Man patch. This one is out of 5 copies. It's in a BGS 9 mint grade. Would you like the honors, or do you want me to go first?
Yeah, I can go first on this one.
Your call.
Okay. So we've talked about Duncan before, if not twice, on this pod, and how we feel like his stuff is undervalued. You know, this is a really cool card, having it be game worn, but it is, you know, an out of 5 Logo Man, which there's not a ton. You'll see some out of 2s and out of 3s in some of the newer, you know, flawless products. There's not a lot of out of 5s. 2009 National Treasures did this for Curry. You know, there's a lot of guys that have out of 5 podcasts a podcast. I see. Look at this. The cold is getting to me.
Yes.
Out of 5 logo. I can't even talk or think. But so, you know, a lot of these manufacturers have or in 2009 they had different players with out of 5s. But, you know, Duncan being undervalued. You know, there was a PSA 9 that sold back in November of this same card for $10,800, and I don't, you know, Duncan's market hasn't seen a ton of change in the last few months, and considering that PSA 9s sell for a premium over BGS 9s, I definitely have this card going lower than what it did back in November. So all those things considered, I've got the card at $8,735.
Sheesh, I should have went first. Okay, you've said a lot of poignant things there. I think what this card has going for it, aside from Tim Duncan being a little bit undervalued, to your point, 2009 was the first year National Treasures basketball was introduced. It was a premium product, I believe $400 a box. We saw Panini kind of try to burst on the scene here with this high-end product. And, it, you know, to live up to that hype, we have lots of attractive Logo Man cards that were produced, and it's appealing. Now I think, you know, you kind of have a chance to look back more than a decade later, and you start realizing the market's been oversaturated with basketball Logo Mans, I believe, right? The supply has just increased dramatically, and if you just go to Beckett and type Logo Man Tim Duncan into their database, 45 total appear. 36 of those Logo Men are Panini products from 2009 onward, just to kind of prove that point. Many of them aren't one of ones, which to me, kind of going to go on a tangent here, but that should be the only way a Logo Man is ever produced, if I'm being candid. They should be all one of ones.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
Totally agree.
So, you know, this one that we're talking about, you mentioned perfectly, is numbered to 5. You guys have actually sold 2 copies of this card. This exact copy sold back in August for $14,400. And then the PSA 9 sold in Premier for $10,800 in November. So this one is very interesting from that standpoint. I wanted to go first here because I do think it comes down a touch. But let me ask you this, by the way, and I should have done that at the top. Bidding rules for this auction. The same as last? No, you don't need to get in before extended? It's just a free-for-all?
We're announcing this will come out tomorrow, right?
Okay.
So we're announcing today.
I had to ask.
Yeah. Extended bidding is going to be open moving forward, just like it was in February.
Beautiful. And
the data is crazy. It's the
smart
and the feedback. I mean, like everybody loves it. You can forget about the auction and come in right at extended bidding and still participate in the auction fully. We haven't really had any complaints about it at all. So it's hands down a winner that we're going to adopt for everything moving forward.
Set the trend. Everyone will eventually fall in line.
2 or 3 months, watch.
No, without question. Without question. Okay, I'm actually going to come in higher than you, and I'm going to stick with my original number. My number here was 9,100. I can't believe I'm coming in higher than you on a modern card, but here we go.
Here we go.
Yeah, I'm going to stick with my original number here.
Okay.
I don't love that it's out of 5. I don't love that this is the third one selling in roughly 6-7 months. But here we are, and this is probably why you're catching up, because I'm going higher than you on a modern card. Okay, you're trying to redeem yourself with the second card this week. You're pulling on the heartstrings. You're trying to get me vulnerable. 1929. R315 Babe Ruth in a PSA 5.5. Would you like me to go on this one?
You can take this one. I took the last.
So I feel like you're going to do something coy here, and I'm not really sure I like it. 32 total copies ever graded at PSA. And you look at this set, there's 46 players overall. Some of the players have different variants. There are 4 different ones among some of the players. Ruth does have a second variant. It looks virtually identical, except the other version along the bottom border has Ruth's position and team. There's only 6 copies that have been graded by PSA of that variant, but neither sell all that often. This exact card sold at another auction house in October of 2021 for a shade less than $8,300. Candidly, I think this card is about eyeballs. It kind of goes back to my Undervalued Ruth a little while ago. I think it's about clientele. You guys have those eyeballs. And the last show we had, you told our community what the acronym PWCC stands for. It's pre-war card collector, right? And so whenever this card gets in front of the right eyeballs, it sells for more. The lesser auction houses don't seem to get the right number. We've seen vintage do quite well at your last auction with the new extended bidding rules. So this has the potential to go higher than I think people believe. I'm going to come in here, and I know it's not the best centered copy, and it started a touch low. But sometimes all it takes is 2 to tango here. I'm going to come in a little high on this one. I'm going to say 10.5 on the Ruth.
10.5. Okay. So I think this is one of those cards that should be worth, I mean, you mentioned 10.5. I think it should be worth more than 10.5. I think it's another undervalued card in general. But it's one of those awareness things again, right? It's really, really weird. It's a really cool looking oversized card from 1929. I don't know why. I love the black and white look of it, the way the font of Babe Ruth and Yankees, the way it's kind of in quote. I love this card. It's a really cool card. To your point, it's a 5.5 that's not the best centered copy. These are more difficult to look at from a condition perspective to say like, oh yeah, that's graded accurately or not with oversized cards. But I've got this one a little bit lower than you. I'm at 9,250. So
that's a good number.
more than the last sale from 2021. But I'm just wondering if the awareness for this specific card is there. It's a cool one. It's just unique. It's an R315 from 1929. It's not a big brand name, right? It's a kind of a postcard looking larger card. Very, very cool. Love the black and white image. But I would not be shocked if you're right and there's 2 guys that go after it and this thing goes for 13 or 14 grand. But for the sake of winning, I'm at 9,250.
I like it. I kind of feel like the range here is somewhere between like 8.7, and I'm probably at the high end of the range. But to your point, all it takes is 2. This isn't the best centered. I wanted to come in a little high because I figured you would be under me, and we've created a nice gap here. The third card, completely different. a player that you slandered a little while ago. I don't know if you know about that or not. Do you remember talking down on this fella here? We're going to talk about the 2018 Select Courtside Black Prism Kevin Durant 1 of 1 in BGS Gem Mint. I'm going to be a little sarcastic here. Believe it or not, there's only 89 different Select Black 1 of 1 Kevin Durant cards. How rare. I'm going to let you lead the way on this one.
Hey, for the record, I didn't slander Kevin. I slandered Chris Paul.
Well, yeah, a little bit of both.
I said I knew people close to him that have actually said he's a great guy. He just doesn't have a great brand.
There you go. That's
right?
what you said.
So
yes.
let's be clear here.
Okay.
But I did, like I mentioned earlier, I picked this card because it is noteworthy with him getting traded to the Suns. I think that we'll get some extra attention and buzz around Kevin Durant cards because of that. And so, I personally, I know that you mentioned there's about, 4 million different Select 101s that exist. But I do the specific 2018 Select. I really do love the design of it. It's kind of got this checkerboard look to it. I think it looks really cool. It's a very aesthetically pleasing card. I love the 1 of 1 in cursive on the back. It's a neat card. And there's not, it's a 1 of 1. There's not a lot of comps, not a lot of easy ways to come up with value. I've got this card at $4,297.
Woo. Okay. I mean, listen, quick glance at... Wait, say that number one more time.
4297.
Did I hear a niner in there? Okay,
4297 in there.
So, quick glance at Durant's market. It's obviously been on the steady decline since leaving the Warriors, right? Multiple injuries. The way he exited Golden State led to, some animosity, I think, from that community. There's some negative sentiment, to your point, around his brand and the thought process that maybe Durant faked his way to a couple rings. And you mentioned earlier about how many different jerseys he's put on, 4 different ones since 2016. I think that hurts cards like
crazy.
this. Yeah, it's just for a player of that caliber, Now, Durant's close to returning to the court after being traded to Phoenix. Shams believes it could be as early as this Wednesday. So there's a possibility where he goes out there and throws up like a 35 burger, and suddenly this takes a life of its own. I like Kevin Durant. I think arguably the second best scorer in NBA history, and get a bucket from anywhere on the court. And for a scorer, he's pretty versatile. Can rebound, obviously, at 6'10". He's actually going to entrench himself here in the top 100 for all-time assists as well. It is a 1 of 1, but I have to come in just below you here. I'm going to say $3,936 on this one.
I think that's probably a safer play. My boys that price this in our vault, because everything that runs through us actually gets priced, so we know what these options.
So you have a helper? Is what you're saying? You multiple helpers?
I have prices. I mean, it doesn't mean they're right.
You're starting to fold under questioning here.
We don't know what someone's going to do until someone's going to do it. So
I feel like this comeback has been propelled by some folks behind the scenes here. Are you paying these guys accordingly?
For what it's worth, this has been the story from day one. So I can't say that they helped me or hurt me. It's just I go get, but they've got the card priced at $5,000. So I came in. $700 under them. But, you don't know. Once again, you get a Suns fan that's super excited about Durant being on their team. Like you mentioned, he comes out, he drops a 35 burger, maybe he drops 72, and he says, the hell with you, Lillard, I'm going to beat you by 1. And all of a sudden, everybody that is a Phoenix Suns fan is looking to buy the next Durant card, and this might be the one they gravitate towards. So it takes 2 guys. You never know. Think it'd go for 6 or 7 Gs, but it's a really cool looking card. I really like it. And I just thought it was a very relevant card to talk about.
And possibly someone pushing and taking a flyer that the Suns can win a championship and maybe have a different belief than you that, this kind of proves that he's won it and, for a second team. Clearly Booker and CP3 weren't going to propel the Suns to a championship this season. Now all of a sudden his implementation takes them over the top and maybe you have someone speculating on that potential outcome.
Damn, that's a ghost. We're going to highlight a card that hasn't sold in more than a year right now, or is serial numbered to less than 100 copies produced. We're going to talk about why this card is significant, maybe in terms of hobbies or language or just the overall rarity of it all, and why it's considered a ghost.
We transition from a one of one to another ghost. I would say an actual ghost. This is the 2003 Upper Deck glass Kobe Bryant Michael Jordan patch auto to 10 copies in perfect condition, PSA 10 gem mint. It's a Pop 1. Talk to us a little bit about why this card's so important and discuss some of its rarity.
Yeah, so this last sold about a year and a half ago, kind of at the peak, for $181,000. Big sale, big card. Gorgeous card. It's a horizontal card, numbered out of 10. This one's serial numbered 5 of 10 and a PSA 10. On-card auto for Jordan and Kobe. You know, it's an early 2000s card. So it's 2003. And as you well know, Payne, that a lot of these patch cards, for, you know, autos or non, from the early 2000s, outside of exquisite, most of them are napkin patches, right? They're one-color patches. And this one is kind of like that, but what I love from these early 2000s is when you find Jordan cards that have the black patch with the red striping.
Yep.
And you catch a little bit of that in the corner here. So it's a two-color patch for the Jordan part of this that has a little bit of the red pinstripe, which I love. You know, when you get an 03 exquisite card that has a black patch and you've got the red pinstripe going down it, those bigger patch windows, I just love those. This card is not the most popular brand with UD Glass, but nonetheless, getting an on-card auto of Jordan and Kobe with game-used patches is a big deal. And like I mentioned, the pinstripe is a big part of it as well. So that's why this card is so rare. It's a Pop 1. I believe the first time it ever transacted was a year and a half ago, and just a really neat piece.
There's very few early 2000s game jersey cards with Jordan and Kobe that are on card, where Jordan is in his Bulls uniform and the game jersey is from the Bulls uniform, right? Like many of the Jordan Kobe cards like this from the early 2000s, right? Like Jordan's wearing the Wizards uniform.
Wizards, yeah.
And they're not nearly as sought after. You have the 2000 Upper Deck combo game jersey that you guys sold in early 2022, I believe it was. That's more than $250,000 card. You know, if you're into game used duels of Kobe and Jordan, right? That's the card. That's the one.
That's the one. Yeah.
But this is, I would say, a very nice consolation prize, right?
Yeah.
It's Jordan's jersey, to your point, has that red pinstripe from his Bulls uniform. There was a PSA 9 that sold for $78K last summer. I think this absolutely blows through that number, being a Pop 1 PSA 10.
I agree. It's going to do more than that. And like we mentioned, there's not many of these combo jersey cards on auto from the early 2000s that you can find of Jordan and Kobe. It's just such a unique piece to find that when you get the opportunity to find it, you don't know if it's going to come back up for sale. So the fact that this is selling a year and a half after it originally sold is a big deal. And this is a card that might get tucked away for another 5, 10, 20 years.
So we doing this or are we doing that? You tell me and we'll tell you. We're going to compare two cards right now with similar value that are completely different. Let me give you an example. Let's just say, for argument's sake, you have a vintage Mickey Mantle baseball card worth $30,000. But you also have a modern day Joe Burrow rookie card worth $30,000. Which one would you rather have and why? You tell us, we're going to tell you right now.
The final segment of the show is one that we enjoy doing. It's a debate most weeks. I believe you set us up for a debate here. When we look at two cards in this or that, you've presented to us this week a 1996 Bowman's Best Atomic Refractor Kobe Bryant rookie, PSA 10 Gem Mint, Pop 36, or in this debate, is the 1991 Topps Desert Shield Chipper Jones rookie in PSA Gem Mint, Pop 32. I will let you have the floor, sir. And I think we're going to be battling on this one.
Yeah, this one's interesting. The Bowman's Best Atomic Refractor Kobe it's a very popular insert from the 90s. The actual atomic refractor, as you well know, Payne, being a 90s guy, right? Like that is a big chase for the 90s. Everybody loves a good atomic refractor. This card sold February 19th for $14.4. Like you mentioned, it's a Pop 36. This card actually got as high as $62K at the peak. So the fact that we're all the way down to 14,000, and based on some of the recent sales, it seems like it's kind of settling there a little bit. I really do like this card. And you usually only see about a handful of these sell every single year. I've mentioned before on here that the turnover of a card is typically about 10% of the population annually, and that can fluctuate up or down depending on market conditions or how high the population is. Because if it's a card that's only a Pop 5, well, maybe you just never see it surface, right? But you see about 4 or 5 of these turnover a year. And with the brand that is the Atomic Refractor, it's just a really, neat card in the fact that it's a Kobe rookie. Now, the 91 Topps Desert Shield Chipper Jones rookie in a PSA 10, this card sold for $13.2 on February 19th, so it's about $1,200 cheaper than the Kobe. It's also a low pop of 32. And if you don't know this card very well, it's really cool. These are actually made as a parallel to the regular base top set from 1991, and these have a distinct gold foil stamp in the upper right-hand corner to distinguish the two. They were actually distributed to the to the troops of Operation Desert Shield, which was a mission to prevent Iraq from invading Saudi Arabia at the time. And there's rumors of some of these not making it overseas, which I guess isn't all that surprising considering of the backdoor talk that we hear from manufacturers in the past. But maybe all the PSA 10s were from ones that didn't actually make it over there. Who knows? There's only 32 of them, but it's on a piece of paper that's very condition sensitive as well. It's hard to find these really nicely centered. It's just a tough PSA 10, and it's been rumored that they manufactured around 6,500 to 7,000 total sets. So the quantity in general is actually fairly low. What's interesting is over the last 5 years, the sales of this card have been between about 12 and 21K. They haven't really fluctuated a ton. It is down towards the lower end of that at 13.2, and because more of the upside with Kobe, I'm actually going to go with the Kobe rookie.
I figured you would, and everything in my gut says the same, to go with the more popular sport of the more popular player, and it's first of its kind atomic refractor, and it was short printed. And you look at PSA, only graded 270 total copies of this Kobe atomic refractor. This is tough debate, right? But we've seen Kobe's peak on this card, to your point, at 65, and we just haven't seen that peak for Chipper Jones. The comp recently, the Kobe sells for about 10% more. I'm going to just disagree, to be a Skip Bayless and be disagreeable here, okay? But I think there's some merit to it. I'm going to side slightly with the Desert Shield Chipper Jones. And where I'm kind of thinking about this, and it's probably the wrong thought process, is that there's more than 140 different products with a Kobe Bryant rookie that were created in 1996. Chipper Jones had a shade more than 10 different products in his 1991 rookie year. A couple of them are these Topps variations, so less rookies to choose from creates a little bit more demand. This is the best one. There are not many consolation prizes, so to speak. And I think you hit this perfectly, is there's some interesting stuff involving this set, right? 1991 was the 40th year anniversary of Topps. This was the final year they printed on grayback cardstock, so you hit that perfectly in that it's a little bit of a sensitive cardstock once they made that change. And this was also the final year gum came in Topps packs. So it has some history that allows it to stand out a little bit more. There aren't a ton of other good rookies, though, in this set. And to your point, like the Desert Shield parallel variation has this beautiful gold foil stamping. It was created as a thank you to the American troops serving in the Gulf War. The packs, to your point, were supposed to be sent to the Middle East, but supposedly never made it past the Air Force Base in South Carolina. Each troop was supposed to receive one of the 15 card packs. I think the massive difference between these and the base tops was, you have this gold foil logo stamped in the upper left-hand corner. The production, to your point, is drastically different. My understanding is it was produced in super low quantity, only 5,000 cases total. So that means roughly 6,000 copies of each player. For comparison, roughly 5 million copies were printed of each player in the 91 base top set.
Sheesh. Very
tough decision here. One that probably ends up being wrong for me. But I was going to let you side with your boy Kobe here. So we're going to have a little bit of a battle here. I'm going to go with Chipper Jones, shockingly.
Yeah, well, I'm going to be like Shannon Sharp then and get up and storm off the set.
There you go. Not typically the hot take guy, and I'm not really a Kobe guy. I think the other thing that's interesting here about the 1996 Bowman's Best, doing a little bit of work there, even though the Atomic has less overall graded copies than the Refractor, it actually has more PSA 10 copies than the Refractor.
Yeah, that is interesting. That's
the card stock may be a little different.
Yeah, that can play. That can definitely play. Yep. But either way you slice it, both very cool cards, very different. But I thought that was an interesting this or that this week.
Oh, it was great. And somehow, by the way, this is going to be the first episode we've ever done that exceeds an hour. And so before we get out of Dodge, anything cooking up? Talk to us about some of the new bidding rules going on at PWCC. Anything in the hopper, anything new? The floor is yours, kind sir.
Yeah, we got a lot going on. Premier auction launches this Thursday, so that's always exciting. Lower quantity of cards in the auction. We kind of seen a decline the last couple months, which honestly, it hurts our bottom line as a company, but it's a good sign for the market. There was too much supply here in the market from a high-end perspective, so it's good to see a little bit of a pullback there. It's very healthy. So we've got that launching. We are opening up all access bidding to both platforms, weekly and Premier, moving forward in perpetuity. It was just too good to ignore, and everybody loved it. So we're making that a staple for our auctions. About a month from now, we'll be at the Mint Collective in Las Vegas, which is a very fun show to go to. It is a kind of a higher end trade show for trading cards that we love. And there'll be some really good booths there. It's at the MGM in Vegas. If you're able to make it, I will be at the show. This is the first show I've been at since the National in August. Come stop by the booth, say hi, let me know you're a fan of the pod. But that's about it for us. A lot of other things cooking behind the scenes that hopefully we can announce here soon.
If you don't see Jesse at the Mint and you want to ask him some card questions and it's like, I don't know, 11 p.m. at night, 1 a.m., kind of stumble towards the slot machines. You might be able to pick his brain.
Hey, look, I'm not opposed to gambling in any capacity whatsoever. Slot machine, table, craps, you name it, I'm there.
Love it. Talk next week, bud.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Make sure you follow Payne on Twitter at Payne Insider. Subscribe to Bet the Board and get notified when new episodes of CardBoard Chat air on Tuesdays. And be sure to stop by pwccmarketplace.com for all your collecting needs.